Today I'm going to try passion fruit syrups and a wide variety of commercially available passion fruit syrup, as well as my go-to homemade version. We'll be looking at Liber Co, Liquid Alchemist, BG Reynolds, Small Hand Foods, Real Exotics, the Smuggler's Cove recipe using Funkin Puree, and finally, what I usually make, which includes the Pitaya brand frozen puree, which I'll show you how to make, and it's very easy to do. Now, I bought these all myself, and this has turned out to be one of the more expensive videos that I've done. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and like this video as well. There is an entire history of passion fruit and how it gets here to the United States. It takes off in the soda fountain and cocktail world, but I'm not gonna cover that today. But something to keep in mind is that passion fruit is not just one single variety of fruit. According to the internet, there are over 400 varieties of passion fruit. Since there are so many varieties worldwide, that means almost assuredly these are going to be a little bit different. Different passion fruit coming from different countries. I've also not Brix tested these yet to find out which ones have higher levels of sugar. I did that intentionally because I didn't want to try to figure out which one is which based upon the sugar content of them. But I'm going to come back after I make this video and I'll insert the Brix levels in them. I know there's going to be a variety from probably, I assume, like 50 Brix up to 66 or higher. I've had most of these syrups before, but I couldn't really tell you that there's one I prefer over the others. I don't have any strong feelings about them. I've done some smaller testing with a couple of the brands earlier this year, and I found they were all good, different, and there wasn't a clear winner. So my assumption right now is that there won't be a clear winner. There won't be one that's just better than all the other ones. But hopefully, maybe I can determine like a tier system here where some of these might be better than the other ones. And then I'll evaluate this, and maybe you'll want to evaluate this based on the cost, because the price difference between some of these is pretty drastic. And I know a lot of you may think the only way to do this is in a cocktail, and that's true sometimes, but I'm not going to make 7 cocktails. And when you're trying to examine the best ingredients, you should start with tasting it on its own. If I was making a fashionola, I would want to use the best strawberries, the ripest pineapple, and whatever fruit I put into it, that's what I would want the best of. So if there's one that's, worse than the others, is that going to work fine in a cocktail? Maybe. But I think it's best to start with what we think is the best. Now, before we start here, there is one somewhat popular omission, and that's using a store-bought pulp or puree like this one and adding sugar. Now, I've done that at least with this brand, and I do not like it. It is far from what I want, and to me, it's not even worth including. So let's make the version that I usually make at home, which is my go-to version using the Pitaya frozen passion fruit pieces. You'll need a scale for this, and it's as simple as taking however much you want to make and weighing it, and then multiply that number by 0.87 and add that much in sugar. That'll get you a 50 Brix syrup. So whether you're using a couple pieces or the whole bag, if you multiply it by 0.87, you'll get a 50 Brix syrup. These frozen pieces are super convenient because you can just keep them frozen and use them as needed. I've only seen these at Whole Foods, so if you don't have these nearby, they might be hard to find. So let's start the taste test. It's semi-blind, I guess. I'm going to be using this turntable to kind of help me out. I'll pour in to these little black cups, put them on the turntable, let it spin around, and then leave the room for a minute and come back in, and then arrange them on the table in front of me. All right, I think that worked better than I thought. I know how my mind works, and as much as I want to be unbiased, I would be trying to figure out which one is which, but I mix them up. I know which one is which. You can't really even see the color in them. Once I was putting them down on the turntable, I kind of forgot right away. So let's just start. For each one I try, I'll come back later when I edit the video. I'll put in which one it is so we know on the screen, and I'll put what the Brix level is as well. So let's start with the one on my far left. Sometimes passion fruit has kind of a little bit of a rotten tropical fruit aroma. This one feels like a little light, so it's not like super thick, but very tart, very sharp, very clean. Ones with more sugar are gonna have a little more body, I would imagine, but there's also some of these that I think have xanthan gum or another stabilizer that may also increase kind of the viscosity. So it's not always going to be sugar. This is good. No complaints about this one yet. Almost less of like a sharp flavor. It's still acidic. To me, it feels like it's more like eating passion fruit, I guess. There's a little bit of that more, I mean, I hate to say like funky, or that it's not funky, it's not rotten. It's just like a little bit more depth to it. That's not just like bright, clean, sharp, but it's good. I don't know if it's just the sensation, but it almost feels like gelatinous, where on my tongue, on my palate, it's like melting. It's more like jello-y. The flavor is weak. The acidity is very weak. It's not real sharp. It doesn't have that clean passion fruit flavor. I'm gonna pull back the ones that I don't really love. Well, that one's way different. That has pretty strong floral note to it. And I'm guessing here too, we're talking about passion fruit that's coming from different places, different regions. Could be something like not as ripe as the other ones. There's something in this one that doesn't taste as much like passion fruit. It's more like guava, papaya thing going on there in addition to passion fruit. Not as sharp as the other ones. Now the sharpness of it, the acidity of it, that's kind of a personal thing. I really like a good pop of citrus in my passion fruit, but that's something you can always adjust in a cocktail with, more lime juice, lemon juice, or if you really cared and there was a flavor you love more than the others, you could just add some acid to it. And my assumption was that they were all going to be the same and maybe there'd be one or two off, but the fact that these have been so different is kind of a surprise. It's a pleasant surprise because I feel like it's, for me at least, hopefully for you, it's like adding a little more value to this and not just, hey, all these are good. This one has less of the sharp flavor. It does have more of like a deeper passion fruit flavor. I don't know if that's what I want out of this one, but it also has this thicker mouthfeel to it. Some of these brands might be trying to sort of bolster up their syrups to make them seem more like syrups by having a stabilizer in there. So I would think that's in there. Not saying it is, just kind of has that impression. The aroma of this one's different. It's very thin. It almost has like a fruit punch thing going on to it. Taste is okay. It's just, it's weak. It doesn't have a lot of passion fruit flavor. Now I got to pump the brakes here again real quick because I think another thing to mention is that like I have a bias to what I think passion fruit should taste like that maybe you think is different because you first had something that's different than what I first had. But I think still I'm open to things tasting different. I'm open to other notes of different fruits in these. And obviously there's not going to be a different fruit in here. Just talking about how flavor compounds sort of tell your brain that it's something when it's something else. It's something funky banana doesn't have banana, right? It's just, that's the flavor compound in there. So some of these have notes of something else in them besides just passion fruit. That might be something you like. I think there could be examples of me liking that, but in this case, some of these ones that I've just kind of muddied flavors aren't what I'm looking for. These two, nowhere near as clean and light. These almost taste identical to me. Out of all these so far, these ones are pretty close, but different. These ones are all different. These two taste very identical. So these are two more of my least favorites. All right, these three here, I'll put them on the screen. They're my favorites so far. I'm going to kind of hurry back through these four and see if there's one that I think is really off, or one or two, or there's we could have like a 3-tier system here. So let me start with this one again. Texture. The flavor is okay. The texture just... All right, these two are my least favorite for sure. Next to these two, I think these two are okay. I kind of prefer the flavor of this one. There is a little more fruitiness to this one that goes beyond passion fruit. Can't really put my finger on it. I think it's okay in that one. This one, the texture's just a little bit off. So I think these are both sort of acceptable, maybe even good, depending on the price, passion fruit syrups, but they're not my favorite of the lot. So that'll be kind of like the mid-tier. Let's run back through the three that I like the most and see if there's one that stands out. All right, these three are my favorite it's hard right now to tell which one I like the most. I'm gonna kind of pause on that and come back. We'll reveal them. I think all three of these are gonna be good. There's some slight differences. I'd like to taste them again and give myself a little time to readjust, and then maybe taste them again and see if there's one that I like more than the others. But let's go ahead and reveal what I think are my least favorites, starting with these two. Now, there's not one that's, I think, the worst. And I'm not even saying that these are, I don't want to say that they're bad. I don't like them. I don't understand kind of the flavor. There's something that's just off-putting about them. This one I have is Small Hand Foods. That's one of my least favorites. This one is Liquid Alchemist. So I feel bad being negative on those. Those are two local Bay Area brands. They have the same thing going on. I can't really describe it. It's just this. It's almost like, I don't know if it's cooked down. There's like a flavor in there that's not as sort of bright and in your face that I want from passion fruit. So I know some people out there, those are gonna be their favorite. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be your favorite, but you know, for me, a lot of these experiments are eye-opening because you think that you like something the most because that's the one you have and you like what you put it in, and it tastes good when it's the one thing that you tried. But try it against some other things and then come back to that. Do that more than one time. See if that's still the case, and then make your decision based on that. All right, moving on to what I think is kind of like middle of the road. They're good. Would use these in cocktails. I would use these in cocktails too. I have them now. I have a lifetime supply here of passion fruit syrup. I'll probably end up freezing some of these bottles. So let's go to these ones here, which I think are good, but not exactly what I want. All right, number one, that's Liber Co. And number three, BG Reynolds. This is interesting now because I feel like these two are I don't know if I could tell the difference. And I feel like these two, I don't know if I could tell the difference. And those are like the brands in my mind that I equate to having similar products. I would have, if you had me match up some of the brands here, I'd say, okay, Small Hands and Liquid Alchemist was what I associate like their products being similar. BG Reynolds and Liber Co being similar. So it kind of turns out that their passion fruit syrups, at least to me, they're very close. I don't want to say identical, close to identical. They're indistinguishable. Now, the three that I preferred the most, let's just start with this one. And this is number 7. That's the homemade Pitaya brand frozen concentrate. Number 5, which is the Real Exotics. And number 6, which is the Funkin Puree. This is what Smuggler's Cove makes. This is Funkin Puree plus a 2-to-1 simple syrup. All right, it's no longer blind taste testing. I just ran back through them. I know what they are now. But I do think the Funkin, to me, is not as preferable to the other two. Now, I would have thought, if you asked me before, which one's your least favorite? I would have guessed it would have been Funkin. Funkin comes in a big bag. It already has some sugar in it. And when you pour it, it's very dark. It has like a more oxidized, almost cooked down look to it. And sometimes that look you can associate when you're tasting it. It's not quite as bright as these other two. So that's why I kind of have it here. It's probably closer to these two, where for me, it's just lacking a little bit of that brightness. Now let me run down the cost for each of these, and I'll give you the cost that either I paid for it or what I was finding for it. Some of these I can't find locally, so they're more expensive because you got to buy them on Amazon. And the price per ounce that I found for these, for those of you looking for price per grams, we're making cocktails here. So the price per ounce is what's important because I'm using half an ounce, quarter of an ounce, full ounce in a cocktail. The Small Hand Foods is $14 for 8.5 ounces. That's $1.66 an ounce. Liquid Alchemist is $20 for 12.68 ounces. That's $1.57 an ounce. Liber Co is $14 for 17 ounces. That's 82 cents an ounce. BG Reynolds is $22 for 12.68 ounces. That's $1.73 an ounce. The Funkin Puree is $27 for 2 pounds and 3 ounces, or 1 kilogram by weight. Now that's not something I can easily convert here, but it is going to be one of the most economical that you can do, but you do need to add in your own sugar and make your own syrup. The Real Exotics is $8 for 16.9 ounces, or 57 cents an ounce. The Pitaya frozen passion fruit chunks is $8 for a 12-ounce bag or 340 grams, and it's actually cheaper than Funkin per ounce, but it's also harder to find. I just put in 2 pieces of nugget ice just to dilute it, chill it a little bit. So to me, the big difference between the two is that they have very similar flavor profiles between the two, but the Real has a bigger pop of acidity. It just turned out that the two that I prefer the most are 2 of the least expensive, and Real, definitely if you're looking for store-bought off the shelf, is the least expensive. Looking at the label, they do have malic acid added to it. Now, one thing to bring up, because this comes up, I think it's natural too, because I used to have this feeling as well. People see Real and they think it's bad. I think it's because of the bottle. It's the least premium of any syrup you can buy. And because we're so used to seeing them at hotel pool bars, just sitting out shelf stable in the heat. It's something we've all seen with their Real cream of coconut. But I used to have negative feelings towards the brand until I started trying their syrups and doing things like this, doing blind taste testing of their cream of coconut versus others and preferring it. And if you look at the label, you got to kind of understand what's on the label. People are going to see that it has sodium benzoate, and they're going to be freaked out because it has a preservative. And yeah, it is a preservative, so it's going to keep longer in your refrigerator. And if you're freaked out about stuff like that, look into it more by reputable sources. Darcy O'Neill did a video from Art of Drink on adding sodium benzoate to your syrups or your sodas to help preserve them for longer. It's something that I want to know more about because I want to start doing that myself. If you're worried about things being as clean as possible and the purest forms of things, then cocktails are probably not the thing for you. Out of everything you see in front of you, the preservatives inside of these syrups are going to be the least harmful to you in the long run than the other things. So I don't really care if something has a preservative or something has salt or sugar or acid added to it to help it keep longer. That only helps me because I don't make cocktails every day. But having something that I know I can put in the fridge and it's going to be good for months or more than a year, it beats buying a syrup for $20 that's going to go bad in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's it for this one. Tasting my way through passion fruit syrups to find which one I think is best. I'm not saying that these two are the absolute best, but they are to me. You might like these brands, but I would encourage you, maybe try one of these ways. These are both pretty cheap things to do. And then do a blind taste test and see what you like. But no shade to any of these brands. They all make really great syrups. It's just in this showdown, in this face-off, I just happen to like these two the best. So if you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, please give it a like below. Consider subscribing to this channel. Check out the Patreon page if you want to support this channel more. And otherwise, I will see you on the next one.